I've been a creative person pretty much my entire life. As I've talked about before, I was using cameras very early on. I've also been a musician pretty much my entire life. I was in bands as a teenager, and then later on I went on to become a producer and a DJ. And since I've started to take photography seriously, I've been thinking a lot about creativity, where it comes from and why I feel this inherent need to make things. One of the things I come up with every single time I think about this, especially when it comes to photography, is I want people to see that end result. But that doesn't mean you should be creating art for the sole purpose of pleasing an audience. While thinking about the audience during the creation of the art can be helpful, it can also just as much, if not more so, be destructive to the process as a whole. When you start putting too much stock into what the reaction to the art is going to be, you stop paying attention to the more important parts of the process. I think some of the greatest artists in the world create their art their way, so they never really have to think about who's consuming it in the first place. And I think that's the perfect scenario for somebody that just wants to create. But I don't know that that's attainable in the age of social media. In the last 10 or 15 years, what we think of as a creative person has changed a lot. And with it, our motivations as creative people have changed. And with that, so has the art that we make. I think it's impossible for the art to not change when the person that creates it is facing immediate feedback online. But I think it can also change why we make art. It's a trap that every single creator can and probably will fall into at one point or another. Because it doesn't matter how big or small your audience is, getting immediate validation for the art that you make can feel really good, especially if you put a lot of time and effort into that art. The more validation you get, the more you want to work, and the more you work, the more validation you get. It's a cycle. You start to create work that you know the audience that you've built is going to love, just so you can get more of that sweet dopamine. But when all you worry about is making art for the sake of making art, the thing you're making is better because of it. And people can tell when something is genuine and when something is bullshit, ideally. Anyway, especially when it comes to photography, there has to be a layer of authenticity to it. Because if there isn't, it sort of just comes off as pandering garbage, because it probably is. The motivation behind the art can be felt when it comes from the wrong places. I've fallen into this trap. When I first had a video really take off on this channel, I instantly thought, I need to make more videos just like the one that really blew up. So I started to make what I thought the audience wanted. The numbers slowly started to fall, and I was kind of left talking to myself because the audience could tell my heart wasn't in it. And over time, that really burned me out because what I wanted to be making was not what I was making. And so it felt like work. And this is something that I've discovered over the last few years. When something I'm making feels like work, I need to stop and question why I'm making it. Because the more the creative process feels like work, the less apt I am to see it through all the way to a finished product. It's not supposed to feel like an obligation. It's not supposed to feel like a chore. The creative process is supposed to free you, not tie you down. And sometimes it can be really hard to admit when something you've been making is coming from the wrong motivations. A lot of the time it can be impossible to see it yourself until you've already made it and put it out into the world. I think what draws a lot of creative people is the urge to manifest what you've been going through and what's in your head into a physical object so that you can hold that object up and say, I made this. This is from me. And if that urge isn't coming organically, it can be really easy to look around at other people and think to yourself, shit, I can do that. So you do. And somewhere in the process of trying to do that, you lose what made your art special in the first place. There is something to be said about artistic isolation, keeping your inspirations pure and thriving in a way that isn't demotivating. Because it can be super easy to pull up Instagram, surf around until you've looked at so many people doing exactly what you were looking for the motivation to do in the first place, just for you to end up not making it at all because you think to yourself, what's the point? It's already been done. I deal with this a lot in the niche that I'm in, by the way. It doesn't matter how good your art is. There's always going to be somebody that is better than you. Somebody that's put in more hours than you. Someone that always has the colors that you want. Seeing all of these people online thriving, doing the thing that you were trying to do can be inspiring, but it can also be really demotivating at the same time. It can make you question if the thing you want to make is worth making at all. So the art that you ingest needs to be chosen carefully. I'm not saying that looking at social media for influence and motivation and inspiration is bad. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video. But what I am saying is that finding motivation online can be so overwhelming that it can lead you into some sort of creative paralysis. And driven by nothing but sheer apathy, I doom scroll my way into a creative standstill and end up making nothing at all. When I am feeling this way, I have to remind myself that my self-worth is not attached to my art. It's not attached to the volume of my output. It's not attached to the number of subscribers I have. It's not attached to the number of likes that my photos get. And that the validation I'm looking for when I'm thinking like this can be poisonous to my own creativity and kill my motivation. We've been conditioned by algorithms to think that art has to be perfect and constant, and that if it's not, that your art isn't worth being shown to a lot of people. But just because your art isn't seen by as many people as you may like, that doesn't mean that it's not worth making. Just because somebody else has taken that photo doesn't mean it's not worth taking. And if you feel compelled to make something, just make it. It doesn't matter if that's a photograph, if it's a painting, if it's a YouTube channel, if it's a podcast, it doesn't matter what it is, just make it. And if nobody sees it, make more. And if nobody ever sees any of those, then at least you will have done something. Creative apathy is a disease, and the only cure is to make shit as often as you can, and damn the outcome, good or bad. It needs to be about the process and not about the end goal. So fall in love with the process and you will become a better photographer. If you like this, make sure you hit the like button. If you really liked it, make sure you hit that subscribe button because I got a lot more content like this on the channel and more like this coming in the future. Thanks so much for watching and I will see you guys next time. Mike the Finder out. See ya.